Reclaim ground media, we're taking back the sound, lifting up the truth until the walls come down. Voices for the kingdom, hope in every town. This is where the lost get found. On reclaim ground.
Hello, Delaware. Welcome back. We are so happy to be back. We took a good long break through December. We were each kind of on our own, doing our own things. Brian traveled a little bit. Me and Greg held down the fort for that one episode where I was super intrigued by our guests. But now we are back and we are ready to get back to business. Now, we had planned on doing this episode for quite some time. We obviously knew with Brian being a state representative that legislative session resumed this week. So we wanted to make sure in that first week that it resumed, we were able to bring to you guys all the information about the bills being proposed, the bills being talked about, just so you guys kind of have an idea of what to watch out for. And hopefully we can kind of start some conversations around these things, and then the representatives can hear our feedback on them. However, in that time where we were planning this episode, I have had a problem, and I am on quite a rampage recently, somewhat apologetically so if you're on the receiving end of it, because our energy bills are insane. They are insane. I am hearing from people every single day asking me what we can do about it. What should they do? They can't afford their energy. And much like the tax reassessments, my heart absolutely breaks because senior citizens reach out to me and there's no good advice I have for them. Single parents reach out to me and there's no good advice that I have for them. So this is definitely going to have to be a conversation within the next couple of weeks. Brian, you know how I've been with this entire Delmarva energy thing. And I think with the onset of legislation coming back, legislative session, it kind of just infuriates me even more because the reason these people are in this situation is because of what happens down in Dover. No offense.
It couldn't truer words
No
could not be
offense,
spoken.
Brian.
You're right. As you sip your tea, no, I hear you and I understand. And some of the legislation that we'll talk about tonight has actually been on the agenda, has actually been in committee, maybe has sat in a desk drawer for close to 8 months now, and it has not seen the light of day. When you talk about the energy, we this is not the topic of tonight, but Gerald Hocker in the Senate actually has a bill that would remove the green energy mandates from the power companies. Now, that is not the final solution, but it is the first step to take.
It is.
Because that, as you know, I don't think there's anybody who's against green energy. What they are against is mandating it to go against free market principles that force companies and create a position where energy becomes more expensive because the free market principles are just, they don't care about it. You're going to meet this mandate no matter what we say. And that's where the green mandates need to go away, at least be lessened. But I would say go away. And Gerald Hocker in the Senate has a bill for that, and it is sat in committee. Hasn't even seen a committee. It is just sat there. It's supposed to go to the Senate the Senate Energy Committee, but Senator Hansen, who is the chairwoman for that, is not allowed for it to have a committee hearing. Now, that is the first step.
Why not allowed to have one?
Well, so every chair by the rules, so the Senate has their own rules, the House has their own rules. The members vote on them at the beginning of each session, every 2 years. And the Senate has a rule, and the House has this rule as well, that the chair of those committees get to decide. The Speaker of the House and the President Pro Tem decide what committees they go to, but then the chair of those committees decide whether and when those actual bills are heard. Now, interesting enough, since we're on the topic of talking about bills we're not going to talk about tonight, I had a bill that was a House rules change several years ago that said that every bill had to be heard in committee because there was 41 of us in the House, and 41 of us are elected by a population of 20,000 people. That's who we represent. They elected us to be there to do a job. They pay for that job. And so any bills that we have should be heard in committee, no matter what. And if those bills are passed by a committee, they should have to be heard on the floor. Because that's another point of contention of mine is when they pass committee, even if they pass it by a constitutional vote, then they can still be held off the floor by the speaker. So and of course, my bill on having bills heard in committee was not heard in committee. So
I'm shocked.
No,
I'm shocked. I can't believe it. That's what happened with the tax reassessment, I believe, too, right? Because there were some good bills proposed that would kind of at least, not get us out of the mess we're in, because the mess that we're in is systemic within the system of the reassessments. Yeah. But it would certainly make the pain a little bit less. And they just.
Yeah. So that's absolutely right, and we can get into that as well. But the green energy bill for the mandates, it is ready for committee. It's ready to go. Gerald Hawker is the one that created that in the Senate. Anyone who's listening right now can email Senator Hansen. She is the chair of that committee, and say, hey, we want to hear it. At least give it a chance to go through the committee process and hear why people think that it's a positive thing to do. Let people talk about whether they think it's negative or not, and have that discussion on the committee floor. There's also a few other bills that deal with it as well. A few bills that reduce the the green energy mandates as well. I believe that's Mike Smith, Representative Mike Smith, that has that bill as well. And then there is some bills that look at focusing on what the real long-term problem is, and that is there needs to be a modernization of the grid here in Delaware. Absolutely. And also a more focus on production of energy on the Delmarva Peninsula. Now,
and I want to say too, while you say that, Brian, also I just want to add that's not even specific to Delaware. In general, across the nation, our infrastructure and our grids are one disaster away from crumbling. So that's something that goes nationwide that has to be fixed. But yes, especially here in Delaware.
Yeah, and I really do think this is where you've got to have a power player like the position of governor to step in and say, look, we understand that there's politics being played. We know that, people say that big business is bad. And sometimes big businesses can be bad actors, but we've got to get together and we've got to solve this problem. There's got to be a way to work together in order to reduce these bills. And while we're doing that, we're going to find a way that's best for the residents long term to be able to produce more energy here and also build the grid up. And it's got to be done. And there's ways to do it through legislation, but the real deals have to come through partnering with those companies and saying, look, you're operating here. We need to become partners in order to do what's best for the people.
Yeah. Well, now that we've talked about bills, and not just electric bills, but bills we're not going to be talking about tonight, let's talk about the bills we are going to be talking about tonight, because there's quite a list of them.
Yes.
So take us into that first one, because that one's interesting.
So what? And thank you for bringing up the electric rates first, and also. Maybe not thank you. Maybe that was the wrong word to use. But it was a good segue, and also talking about the reassessment, because those are the two major reasons. The reassessment and the taxes put on top of the reassessment by the school districts and the electric, that we are seeing so many financial burdens come for residents of Delaware. I'm sure you've seen the emails, Katie, personally. You've seen people reach out to you and say, what am I going to do this month? I mean, I only have so much money. I only bring in so much income. And it's not just retirees saying I'm on a fixed income. It's people who are working 2 and 3 jobs and saying, I can't work more hours.
Yeah.
And I have 2 kids, and I can't afford buying them dinner and also taking them to school and also making sure that we have clothes. The bills are just getting ridiculous. So the spending is where we really need to, in the General Assembly, get a hold of. It needs to be the foundation, and there's a few bills that deal with that. Number one, I know we were going to talk about HB 99 first, but I really feel like number one is we need to talk about the overall spending in general, and that is through
Brian, we got to bring Greg up for that one too, because his background on this, I know he's a big guy on the spending and minimizing it.
I'm more than happy to. Yeah,
There
go
we
ahead, Greg.
go. I know Greg has a lot to say on this.
Well, absolutely. So I'm really excited to be here with you tonight to talk about this as the constitutionalist libertarian in the room, independent. My mentor actually would say that fire is a wonderful thing, everybody. Fire cooks your food. It can heat your home. It can keep you alive. But if you don't put the fire in a fireplace, it will burn your entire house down.
Yes.
So government power is fire, and the Constitution is our fireplace. And so I look at all of what we're going to examine tonight through the concept of fire itself is not evil. It does some good things for us. Our courts, our police, our national defense, the basic order of our society. However, an uncontained fire, especially an uncontained fire with spending that is out of control by legislation, is destructive. And just as a fireplace that doesn't contain the fire destroys the home, power without limits is going to destroy our liberty. And so I want to make sure that we're containing our liberty and our government exactly where we have enacted it. And so that's why I'm here tonight. I want to hear about the things that I think are really good that are on the docket, and the things that I think really restrict our liberty and might affect our purse here in Delaware in the future because we're expanding programs too long. And so my background has always been doing this on a national level for DC, but I'm excited to bring kind of my background and input to Delawareans. And so thanks for having me for that.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. It's let's see what Greg thinks about this first one, because I haven't asked him about it. So I'm going to put him on the spot and put me on the spot too, because this is actually a bill that I've been working on with my colleagues. So I'm a little uneasy right now. So HB 52, I think it is an important bill that kind of sets the foundation and the tone for what we're going to talk about with other bills of spending. And it is actually an amendment to the Constitution, which first of all, sets a pretty high bar to be an amendment for the Constitution. It has to pass 2/3 vote on 2 consecutive sessions. It also has to be an idea that is going to stand the test of time. It can't just be a fly by night. This will fix something in the interim. It's got to be something that really should be placed within the Constitution and can be there for the test of time. What HB 52 basically does is it puts an amendment into the Constitution limiting the spending of the General Assembly. And how it does that is that it limits it by actual economic factors in the private sector. And those factors include growth, population growth, also include the financial growth of the people that live in Delaware itself. And it basically cannot outgrow how many people and how much people are making inside of Delaware itself. So it keeps the spending limits cut down. Now, one of the reasons it's so necessary at this time is because over the last 4 years, we've seen the Delaware legislature and approved by the governor approve 30%, a 30% increase in spending while only bringing in an 18 increase in revenue.
Yeah.
And then last year alone, they approved an additional, for this year's spending, an additional 7% increase while bringing in projected bringing in less than 2% in revenue. So this puts spending limits, but does it in a real economic, with real economic factors that can grow or fall or rise and fall by the actual economy as it is in any point in time.
So, Brian, how would this be impacted by things like the One Big Beautiful Bill Act? So, the reason why I asked that is Governor Matt Meyer is facing a projected, I believe it's $400 million revenue shortfall. And that's something that they're looking at over the next 3 years. And he's saying it's because of federal tax changes with the Trump administration that's going to hurt corporate revenue, although we know that corporations are leaving Delaware through some of the legislation that's come out. The Republicans have blamed Delaware for overspending. Would this bill have been able to protect Delawareans from the shortfall that's coming in the next 3 years?
Oh, absolutely it would. And the shame about it is that, or I should say the disappointing thing about it, is a version of this bill was originally introduced by Representative Danny Short years ago. I want to say probably 8 years ago. And if that would have been implemented, it was under, who was the state treasurer at the time? The gentleman was only there for Ken Simpler. So Ken Simpler basically came up with this foundational idea of basing the spending on economic limits that you could always go back to, and it wasn't somebody's personal idea. Well, maybe we should look at this factor this year, next year we'll look at a different factor, but basing it on the same factor year after year. And part of that was put into part of the recommendations that Treasurer Ken Simpler suggested was put into law, like the over and above the rainy day fund. They do save some of that money that was put in there, but this was not. And Danny Short put this bill on and it never went through. And that could have saved us because we wouldn't have been in the same position we are now. We wouldn't have overspent. Now, the other thing is for any legislators that are worried about not being able to do their pet projects or not being able to spend as much as they want, it actually gives you coverage, to be honest with you, because you have to spend within that budget. And being a small business owner, first of all, you have to meet a certain budget, or you can't make the bills work. You can't pay the people who work for you. You can't pay the bills that you have. And it's kind of the same concept. And at the end of the day, you're able to go back to that division, or you're able to go back to that factor and say, this is what we can spend and this is what we can't spend. And you've got to plan out for the future. So you may not be able to do what you wanted to do this year, but you have to compromise. You got to work with people, maybe put it in a future budget, and you've got to plan more than year to year. And that's what we're doing a lot of right now, is planning from year to year.
And what you guys did last session, from what I know, is the HB 255 decoupled federal tax code provisions in order to try to protect funds. So this is that was more of a stopgap measure, and this is more of a future planning measure.
Correct.
Which I fully think that that's a good idea, especially because our Congress here is supposed to control the purse and make sure that we're responsible, that our governor is held with checks and balances. So, I have no problem with this. I think this is responsible legislation, and it looks good to me as far as making sure. I just think that the one thing we have to pay attention to is the next administration can come in with their own Build Back Better, green energy, big, beautiful bill, and it throws everything into a tizzy for a 5-year plan. And so those stopgaps that have been introduced in the past are still probably going to have to happen. But I do like the fact that this is a longer term plan.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Well,
good.
Yeah, it's common sense too. It makes sense.
Imagine that. Common sense.
So now that kind of foundational, discussion has been had, there also are some really good bills that I hope go through the General Assembly, get out of committee, that will help people on the ground level. HB 99 is Senator Buxton and Representative Urick, and it helps with individuals who have children. So anyone that has children on the federal level, you receive a earned income tax credit. And over time, over a few years, this will actually go up to a level to help match that of what you get on the federal level over a period of time. In the first year alone, it'll elevate that number of your fully refundable tax credit for the children that you have in the year 2026. So just as you get a tax credit for the children that you have on the federal level, this bill is looking to increase that tax refundable credit that you get on the state level and increasing it year after year.
How nice of the government to break our leg and hand us a crutch. You know, how nice of them to steal my wallet and reach in and give me at least $5 for my wallet back out
Brian,
of the 50 that was there.
When we talk like this, do you ever feel like you're on the chopping block?
I do not, because I feel like we talk like this in our caucus, in our minority caucus.
Brian's like,
why? Like, this is how we talk about a lot of bills. We're like, how good of us them to do that after they already took something else.
Yeah,
like,
this is where Brian's like, why did we invite Greg onto the show? This was supposed to be softballs and easy. And all of a sudden he's going to start telling everybody taxation is theft and legalized force of the individual. And yeah, you're partially right, Brian.
And the Fed while you're at it.
I'm all for that.
It reminds me either of the minority caucus or having a conversation with my brother-in-law.
In all seriousness,
conversation.
This is one of those bills where there's compassionate intent, especially with the Delaware bills rising. A couple extra dollars back in people's pockets. Excellent, great bucks. And the mechanism I would view as unconstitutional, because I don't like using taxation in any way, shape, or form. Just give us all of our money. But that all stated, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. This is absolutely a great thing for Delawareans that are already feeling some pressure finaally. And so this was our money to begin with. Might as well give some of it back. So I have no problem.
$805.
$805. That might actually pay one Delmarva bill.
For some people, yes.
Some will cover a fraction of it. Oh,
absolutely. There was also another bill that will help in the future. It will not help immediately, but I think is very important. It's a bill by Mike Smith that will stop the 10% increase on up and above reassessment from school districts.
That carried from last session, right?
Not only did it carry from last session, but it was brought up in the special session that we came back for August and met, and they refused to put that on the agenda as well. Now, with the new reassessment, with small businesses paying a increased rate after that reassessment as they wanted to balance out between commercial properties versus residential properties, then the school districts were able to put 10% on top of that. Mike Smith's bill says, no, you have to show that there was actually harm done to your budget because of reassessment. And that makes sense. That makes sense that you can't just grab that 10%. You've got to say the reassessment actually harmed us because of the way the economy's going, and this is why we need it.
And that's HB 245.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm going to put it up on screen so people want to look at it. They can too.
Yeah.
Another one. Excellent. Right. Like how tone deaf was this from the school districts in having such inflation over the last 5 years, knowing that we have a high poverty level in our Delaware schools to begin with, and then just taking it because they could. So this is a great way for consumerism, for Mike Smith and the others that signed on to this. I think I saw Hensley and Buxton co-sponsors. We got across the aisle. I see some names there. This is excellent to see that people are trying to protect. Even it looks more GOP led than Democrat led, but
I'll take it.
I'll take it. It's a way to protect us.
You know what, with that 10% talk too, I want to say, shout out my alma mater, Brandywine School District, because they took a modest, 1.3 it started at, 1.3%. Everybody else went for 7 and above. Brandywine School District just nailing it once again, understanding, taking their students and their families into consideration. So shout out to Brandywine School District.
Yeah, that's very true. And it definitely is the complete opposite of schools like Appoquinimix that had, first of all, didn't know where the 4.9 million went, and then had a referendum that passed, and then put up the 10% after that anyway. It's just people are tired. The transparency and the accountability alone, people are exhausted from not knowing what's going on and being told at the last minute that they're going to foot the bill, but now they can't even pay the bill when it comes.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be felt like you're tricked into something, and that's bad enough. But then when after you're tricked, you can't even afford it. I mean, it's not even like it went up like $5 and you're like, oh, whatever, I'll just pay. It's just it's too much. It's too much, and everything's hitting at the same time. As we said before, the Delta and the Deneric fees were raised this year as well. It's just there's too much going on. One thing that would help as well, HB 126 is on the table. It is to eliminate taxes on overtime pay. The conversation that I've had with the Department of Finance is that Division of Revenue, is this will be too difficult to find out how this would actually work. I don't feel that that's correct. I told them that, well, maybe it's not for this pay period, but could be a refund of some, like there has to be a formula that we could figure out. If you can't do it immediately because you can't throw in the hours, which hours were overtime, which weren't, and then have a refund immediately, then maybe it could be quarter by quarter. There's got to be a way to do it, and that just hasn't been worked out yet. But I'm hopeful that that work will be done. The challenge that I see with many parts of the state is that if it's something new, they don't really want to have that discussion on how to do it.
Well, and for our friends watching at home too, I just want to clarify, because one of the questions I had when Brian and I and Greg first started talking about this one is, why is this needed or necessary when that just passed on a federal level? If you remember just a little bit back ago. However, on the federal level, that obviously applies to no tax on tips and overtime for your federal taxes. This would apply to states, so you would actually be seeing the benefit twofold on both ends there.
And I think you're going to have major opposition because Ron Paul always said, don't steal because the government hates competition. And they're going to look at this as they're losing wages of overtime in taxation. I look at this as, if you are going to labor, you deserve your wage. Taxing overtime punishes the effort of hardworking Delawareans here up and down the state. I think that this is an excellent step toward liberty for the worker. I don't think that this is the end destination, Brian. I would love to see a complete different part, but this is another great stopgap. And if you have better fiscal responsibility on the books, as we talked about at the beginning, it actually enables our legislators to support this bill in order to put more money back in the people's pocket to pay those bills, in order to help themselves, if they're in a poverty level, work hard and get themselves into a better destination. So exempting overtime is reducing the punishment of productivity that Delaware has been under and many other people throughout this country. So bravo, Brian. Yeah. This was actually one of the bills when I looked at, I said, this is an excellent one.
Well, thank you. It's, there needs to be a lot more discussion on just new ideas. I mean, one of the things that we've brought up for years is the reduction of the real estate transfer tax. It was supposed to be temporary when it first came in. No tax is ever temporary, unfortunately, when it's after it's proposed. There was a bill last year of actually cutting half of it. So one half of the transition, if you are a Delaware resident selling a home in Delaware and within the next year buying another home in Delaware, you would not have to pay on one of those transactions for real estate transfer tax. And the point of that was to capture, in my mind, two different categories. Individuals who are getting older and want to downsize, but they still want to invest in Delaware. They still want to buy another home in Delaware. But they can't afford $12,000 for real estate transfer tax on both. $12,000 to sell it and then another $12,000 to buy another home, $24,000. Or people who are having kids and need to have another space that has maybe another room or something of that nature. And going back to my point, the state just doesn't want to, figure out how to be innovative or get that new idea up and running. Their biggest problem was, well, we're not going to be able to figure out whether that person really moved inside of Delaware again, or if they moved somewhere out, and we're going to have to come up with a whole new system. And it seemed like a very minimal obstacle to overcome in order. And I understand they're going to lose revenue on it, but at the same, you're helping people in Delaware on a tax that the government really doesn't do anything for. I mean,
Right.
the actual mechanisms that help with the recorder of deeds and the other things aren't at the state level. They are at the county level that deal with that, and they have fees within the house. When you buy a house or sell a house too, they just weren't willing to budge. They weren't willing to have that conversation. So I think that's a bigger issue as well in the state of Delaware. But I think fiscally, those are the things that we need to start thinking on, getting money back in people's pockets out of their own money, because whether it's going to the bottom line of Delaware, of our finances, should not at this point be our only and first concern, because people aren't making ends meet. And when their houses are going under, when they're not paying bills, that's going to have a more damaging effect on the state and the resources that we've got to spend than not collecting a few more extra dollars from people that are just making ends meet at the end of the day.
Huge foreclosure rate, and it's just increasing. And now we're adding salt right into the wound and making it even harder.
Yeah.
Katie, you put out a post that I think goes to this next bill. You asked for people that are in starting businesses or businesses that have been struggling. And I know you and I both have had an interest in this. But I did the Two Fat Guys, and I got a couple other businesses that are saying that, the state is taxing them to death. They got insurance rates. What are you hearing about that? Because I think that goes to this HS2 for HB 13 bill that I'm pretty upset about.
The small businesses are struggling, even large small businesses, even small businesses that are ingrained within Delaware, that have been around. They're not just popping up within the past couple of years. They are being hammered right now. And like you just said, Two Fat Guys, they're being forced to close their doors. And there are a lot of ones that I would really hope that they don't go under, that are considering it, because it's just unaffordable. It's simply unaffordable at this point. And like we've been talking about, Del Mar, they're getting hammered from all different ends. It's not just the tax reassessment, jacking up their tax bill. Well, now their electric bill's going up because of this. And, if they don't if they're not getting hit by the tax bill, if they're renting, the rental's going up for that parcel. So they're not able to open their doors. Alternatively, there's a lot of other people that have been thinking about getting into these areas and businesses, whether it be starting brand new, whether it be a food truck that wants to go from being a food truck to now being a brick and mortar establishment, that are now looking at the reality that they cannot do it. So that's why I feel it's so important. And I want to highlight small businesses in Delaware, especially ones that are just now popping up, to actually give them a chance of getting going, but ones that have popped up in the past couple of years, and highlight them to hopefully bring business to them, because that's where the backbone of Delaware is.
Right. Well, this House Substitute 2 for HB 13. Brian, can you just tell us, before I get into it, can you tell us why they do a substitute of a bill? I know the answer to that, but I want them to hear a more pronounced legislative reasoning for it.
So usually when I do a substitute of a bill, it's because maybe this isn't the reasoning that you're going to bring up, but there's usually more than one change that needs to be made, or there's a substantial change that needs to be made. So it's not just like, hey, we need to change this word or that word. It actually changed the substance of the bill, of the meaning of a part of the bill is changed. And that's why they have to do a substitute for it.
Yep. And so here they were adjusting the existing personal income tax brackets. And this is something that we hear about often, that, tax the rich, take the burden off the people at the bottom. The problem is we have a constricting middle class here in the United States. If you taught the people about what they're making, when you hear the numbers, it would have sounded like, oh, you're like upper middle class, but really they're middle to lower middle class based upon these numbers with the inflation. And this House Substitute 2 for HB 13 is an income tax increase that, from what I can tell, really restrains liberty if we're comparing it to the other bill we talked about with overtime. And raising rates never fixes the spending of governments. It punishes productivity. It punishes the small businesses that we've been talking to that are telling us, hey, you know what? We're really struggling with what's going on right now. And so there's a 6.75% taxable income in excess of 150,000, but not in excess of 250,000. They're increasing to 6.85%. Excess of 250 to 500,000. That's really your small business owners that are going to get penalized there, and 6.95% of taxable income in excess of 500,000. And there seems to be this thought process that, oh, well, if people are making this type of money, they can afford the taxes. The problem is it stagnates the entrepreneurship that helps employ Delawareans here and give jobs to the average Delawarean in order to support their families. So if we weaken these people, and I think we're weakening, we're not talking about the multimillionaires. We're talking about people making $500,000 and raising taxes on them through this bill. This is a big, big disappointment here for this bill. So I would urge people to ask for yet another substitute. This is going the wrong direction. And so the people you can ask for, Lynn's the primary sponsor, Hoffner, Morrison, and Lambert are co-sponsors. And so engage in conversations, polite conversations.
Polite is a key word there, guys.
Yes.
You're not going to get anything calling names. We see these on our posts all the time. Be polite, talk facts, make people realize why they should be listening to you.
If you're a business owner, get in touch with them. Let them know how this is going to impact you before it gets passed and all of a sudden your business is being shut and you're going, oh, well, I wish I spoke up before everything passed in Dover and buried me some more.
Here's
Go ahead, Brian.
Kate.
Go ahead.
Here's a very real scenario that I hear from small businesses is the amount of capital that you have to have on hand in order to operate a business. And what most people don't understand is that when you have an LLC, which most of our businesses here in Delaware, most of our small businesses are LLCs. 99% of our businesses here, or 98% of our businesses here in Delaware are small businesses. When you have an LLC or an S Corp, whatever money that you have on hand is actually carries over from your business at tax time and is put onto your personal income tax. So I've been approached by businesses that say, hey, I've got to keep 3 months of salaries inside of the bank account at all times. So we come up on tax season and I've got 3 months worth of salaries, which to me is $120,000 in the account because I want to do what's fiscally responsible. There goes $120,000 that I'm taxed on right there. Plus I've got to account for how much money that I made during the year. And it can be a modest $40,000 a year, but that already raises me over the rate that we're talking about now, just because of the way that we're being taxed. The other things that I when we talk about small businesses, in addition to a lot of them hitting this 125, 150 threshold, dealing with being an LLC because it comes over to their personal taxes is I don't understand, and maybe this would be a good show for us to have, is have a business owner come on and share how many times and how many different places where they pay taxes to the state of Delaware. I always used to joke with my wife when we first started a business 15 years ago that we were double taxed, because when you're self-employed, you pay anybody who works for you, they pay half of their taxes as the employee, and you pay half of the tax as the employer. But when you're the employer who works for yourself, you pay the employer and the employee tax at the same time. Then you pay taxes on the LLC. Then you pay taxes on gross receipts tax. You pay taxes on the insurance. You pay taxes on all these things. So it's just an interesting model. And whether you would agree with this bill or not. It's an interesting exercise to go through to see where that money is actually being pulled and how many times and how much that dollar is being taxed before they even can take out of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Especially, it's a good point from your perspective as a small business owner, not just legislator too, because that's the things that most people don't know or understand.
Well, we were looking at the overarching, and we saw lots of different House bills that we can highlight quickly. And then I want to get to what struck you about one of these bills. What was something that when you saw it, you were like, huh, I'd like to talk about that. I think, Katie, you have something, I have something, Brian, you likely do too. But let's talk about things that maybe might get lost and swept under the rug. House Bill 75, retroactive civil claims for child sexual abuse. I think that when we look at this, due process, one thing is great. If you had something wronged, you got a civil way to be able to deal with it. But the Constitution was written in order to restrain government, not to protect monsters. I think we can agree upon that. I don't like retroactive laws because the intent, I believe, is good, right? We want justice for the victims, but what's the rule of law? What if we're playing poker and I win a hand and Brian says, hey, Greg, we're going to play by different rules starting last hand and you owe me that money back, right? Now, I know you're not playing poker with me, Brian, but I'm just saying after that hand is over, you don't get to change the rules. It may not be cheating, but suddenly the dealer would sit at the table and say, hey, there's a new rule and you lose. And so I just want to caution people why I think that House Bill 75 is excellent. And I support the sympathetic goal of it. It does set a dangerous precedent that we could start to see that we could maybe go into retroactive law in the future and justify it because of House Bill 75. What's your thoughts on that, Brian?
Setting a precedent.
Yeah, setting a precedent. Exactly.
Yeah. I honestly would rather see the one that I believe it's sitting in the Senate right now, which expands the statute of limitations for child victims.
I think that is
That's good.
75.
That's the same one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so House Bill 75, I'm going to pull that up for you guys right now.
So my thoughts on this is I do believe we got to be careful where we draw this line, but for me, I voted yes for this bill. I think that this is one of the things, at least that I am willing to say, yes, we can go back in time if you have the proof that this did happen to you. And the reason is really the reality of what happens with these types of crimes. And because of these types of crimes, a lot of times they are minors that a lot of times, first of all, don't understand that it's something wrong that's happening to them because of their age, or they feel embarrassed to come forward. And then studies show that it actually takes them years to come forward and actually do this. And also the statute of limitations in Delaware is only 2 years.
Right.
For it.
Yes.
So that might be something to look at as well, is to say, let's have that statute of limitations, not only for this eliminated, but maybe for other crimes raised more than 2 years, because that is a very short window. But I think you're right in following that thread and saying, now let's look at another bill. Like, I think it was, I may get this wrong, but SB 95, where they went back with the property of the wind farm and said, we're going to make this bill retroactive to the decision that Sussex County made months earlier about this property. So I think we definitely have to be careful when you go to retroactive bills, and it has to be something that's very extraordinary in order to do that. I think you're right on that statement.
Yeah, I want to call out something you said, though, Brian. You said that one of the things that you were supportive of this bill is when there's overwhelming evidence that people should be able to go back. This is not a court. This is civil. And civil law requires less of a preponderance of evidence in order to rule in favor. And so that's where I was getting at, where it could be abused. I like Katie's proposal of let's go to the statute of limitations and let's raise the statute of limitations in order to protect these minors. We saw it with the Catholic priest, right? They reopened the window, and we had people come forward, and we brought justice to light in a horrible situation. So I would be more for raising the statute of limitations for the criminal side than seeing the civil. So that way we actually have a ponderance of evidence that is really benefiting the criminality, and then it can be followed up in civil court. And but I think you both brought up great points. And again, this is such a horrible thing that happened to a minor that it's very easy to see what I'm saying as not supporting the victims of sexual abuse. That's not what I'm saying.
You know what? The interesting wrinkle in this is that when we talked about this in committee, and you can go watch it online. It's if you go back and see HB 75, the point that got some legislators caught up was when they talked about holding institutions accountable for this happening. And the discussion was surrounded around, well, will this cost the state money if something happens in the state? And I couldn't believe my ears. And I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, if the state goes bankrupt because of anything, I'm willing for it to go bankrupt over this.
For that.
If there are victims of sexual abuse that have been hidden for years and the state knew about it, I'm willing to burn it down and start over because of that. Absolutely. And it was just wild. It was wild to hear those conversations. And it wasn't prevalent. It wasn't the whole, conversation, but it was kind of like, this is odd. And it is also odd to me that it was not held in the Senate last session, because there was a lot of time to do that. And it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for it to be in session this year as well.
How much do you guys like government involved in your healthcare?
Not at all.
Okay. So this act, this one made me chuckle. And
great leading question. I love it.
Yeah. Well, it sets it up so that way we can figure out where you're at. This is a HS1 for HB 163, the Diabetes Wellness Pilot Program. Mm-hmm. And look, as somebody who has family members that have struggled with diabetes, it's something that's really close to my heart. It's affected my life personally with my family. But I just want to ask, where in the Constitution, Brian, does it authorize any of you guys in Dover to run your doctor's office? Is there any place that I missed that they're allowed to do that? And I've been asking this since COVID. Where are they allowed to legislate our doctor's office and wellness? Because what this sounds a lot like to me is once the state starts funding your wellness, it's going to start defining what is your compliance.
This one's a big thumbs down for me, I want to say, and it has nothing to do with diabetes. It had because again, my family my grandmother suffered with terrible diabetes. I was one of her primary caregivers at the time. I'm very empathetic to it, but at the same time, I don't believe programs like this work, and I don't believe it's the government's job to implement them either.
Yeah, I don't want to see my government in a lab coat.
No.
I'm going to offer you help, then I'm going to give you some conditions for that help, and then I'm going to later penalize your refusal for that help.
Yes.
That's not medicine, that's tyranny. And this one was one where I was like, hey, voluntary education, they want to have state-run health programs that are trying to get people healthy through good literature that's out there. That's fine, but this gets into the unconstitutional realm, and this one raised my eyebrows a bit. Do you guys like the fact that I'm picking on some of these? Because I can stop or I can continue on.
Personally, I love it. Personally, I do.
Like, Katie, which one sticks out to you that's currently?
You know what? I don't remember the bill name, and I'm probably going to be very politically incorrect when I say it, but the Boys and Girls Sports Bill. Okay. Is what I'm going to call it.
Do you have what number that is so I can pull it up?
I don't. That's what I just said. I don't have it up here at the time. I don't have it.
I think it's Senator Richardson is the one that's.
I think that sounds right. I could probably look it up. I had it saved when we were talking about this the other day. I sent you guys the rundown of kind of how I felt, like the one-word rundown of every bill. I feel very, very, very strongly about protecting the institution of female sports. As you guys know, as most people that are watching that follow me probably know, I'm very passionate about girls volleyball, especially. I've played probably almost every sport that there is to play, but volleyball is the one that stuck around for me. And you guys probably have seen on a national scale that volleyball has become very controversial this year, with allowing trans athletes to compete against female athletes. And I feel incredibly strongly that there is absolutely no place for biological males to be in female sports ever, at all, period.
The interesting thing that I think is happening.
I think it's SB 215. Let me pull this up. I think I just found it for you.
It happened last year, and it's going to happen again this year. Is at the beginning of the year, there's actually a resolution that celebrates girls' sports, and there are a lot of people on both sides of the aisle that will be sign on for this resolution. Now, a resolution is something, and it's probably going to offend a lot of people, and I don't mean it to, but it's a resolution is kind of like we care, but not enough to do anything. Like we recognize something, but it's not an action that's taken. And so this recognizes girls' sports, but then you will not see those same names on inside a piece of legislation that protects girls' sports. And that'll be interesting to see which names you see on one, but not the other.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's interesting is this is actually something that's been on the national level the past couple of days with Supreme Court justices, where they're asking, I saw the question just earlier today, can a man get pregnant?
Yes. Yep.
And a person was like, I can't answer that question. It's a political question.
Yes.
And he's like, no, it's not asking for a political purpose. Can a man get pregnant? We need to establish, biology and science.
Define biology, yeah.
And there was several people that refused to answer that question. And I think that, we've got to be able to start talking about biology in scientific terms and facts.
Yes.
And
that, by the way, that was Senator Howley to Dr. Verma. I watched that live.
Yes.
I know exactly the moment you're talking about.
Yeah, these are questions that are the reason why people are getting polarized and pushed off to different sides, because we're refusing to answer common sense questions for reasoning of we might isolate our base on a political side, or we might offend somebody, rather than having conversations that are really based on objective truth and objective fact. And so, I'm here for objective conversations. So anything that brings objective conversations to the table, while also still having compassion for the individual, I'm all for it. I think it's a great conversation to have.
When you're talking about biology, and this is the thing I feel like that gets me when they can't answer these questions, is it's not nuanced at all. It's really not. It's one of the very few things that are just cut and dry. And then they don't want to answer it because they feel like it's setting up like a trap, because as soon as they answer that with the correct answer, they know that snowballs and it's a slippery slope to get, well, how are you saying this if you answer yes to this? Right. So they avoid it entirely. But the avoidance is an answer in and of itself, in my opinion.
Hey, there's one that came up that there's some great things happening in Delaware. The Pine Box. If you guys don't know what the Pine Box is, light action sound stage. They built the Pine Box in Wilmington, and they're bringing in like Cyndi Lauper, Journey, and doing music videos there. A lot of people don't know about this. Yeah. When you're driving up 495, you'll see this big kind of brownish building that's real tall. It's actually a Delaware sound stage. And I'm glad, as somebody who has a television and film degree and teaches broadcast journalism and audio, radio, video, I like seeing the fact that things are moving towards Delaware being better in the entertainment industry. That all stated, House Bill 237 is one of those bills where I understand, like Georgia, they bring in these type of bills. Michael Smith is the person who brought this in. I think this benefits the Pine Box, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. It's intended to encourage job creations for artistic endeavors. So this benefits what I teach. So this is great from there. My only question would be, why does a filmmaker deserve a tax break, but a plumber doesn't?
That's a valid point. I honestly don't have an opinion on this one. I'm very neutral on this one way or the other, but when you propose it like that, it's a very good point.
Yeah, I mean, when we target incentives, then the entire market gets distorted. And we can see this in California. We can see this in Georgia, what this has done with the entertainment industry. And lobbyists come in and, for me, I would just rather, can we just lower taxes for everyone and stop pretending that we're going to create a fair playing field? Hollywood doesn't need subsidies. It needs customers to come buy their films. This to me is just more crony capitalism, just putting a costume on and masquerading around as it. So while I understand they're trying to bring people to those industries, and it does help the career field that I've been in, I believe that I've worked my butt off without subsidies and without these type of programs and been successful. And my colleagues have been successful without these things as well and can continue to be. Light Action is a great example of a company doing it extremely well that didn't have these type of tax credits. And if we're not offering it to all, I don't think it should be offered to any.
Like Brian's perspective with the small business, that's an interesting and unique perspective because you are in this industry. You have been in this industry, so it uniquely would affect you and you still feel that way.
Yeah, that goes to like the video I did yesterday was some of these legislative things that we were sent referred to things as a homeless Bill of Rights. And I actually had the opportunity to speak with Representative Phillips before we went live tonight, who clarified. She said, I think it's unfair to call this a homeless Bill of Rights. I said, okay, well, the document I have, this is the way it called it. And I can understand why it called it this, and I can explain it to you why. You're stating that this community should get sovereign immunity to be able to sue the government.
Yeah.
The problem with that is you're now creating a special class of people, which is a Bill of Rights for those individuals. And as a result, the average person should be able to sue the government. Brian was just talking about that. Hey, if there's a major wrong that the government has done, I don't care if it bankrupts the government, they should pay for it. They've wronged you. They do not get this immunity from it. So, seeing this bill that's been out there, I will look into Sophie Phillips' bill further. She actually invited me to speak with her lawyer that's helping with the language, and I plan on following up and doing so, and I'll give some more information. But that bill, and then there was this other one that was in here that talked about a teacher's Bill of Rights, and Representative Michael Smith actually reached out to me. He's like, I don't know where you got your information, but this, you should retract it. It's not there. And so I'm going to ask Brian, the documents of legislative notes that I received, is this accurate? And can you stand by it that this is information that's been discussed? Because I want to make sure that I'm lining my ducks up in a row and people can trust what I'm saying.
So the list that you're reading off of is just a list of things that I have that have been discussed. So they're not all things that have been filed. They're things that are being talked about throughout the state of Delaware.
Okay. So what I would assume there is Mr. Smith did not like the fact that I made something public that's being discussed that has not been proposed. But you know what? This is actually a good thing. And this is why what Reclaim Ground Media is doing is excellent for Delawareans. I brought up that part of what was discussed was shielding teachers from frivolous lawsuits using qualified immunity as a legal defense. And I said, as an educator for over 20 years, this is a horrible idea. If a teacher does something wrong in the classroom that harms a student, they should be held to the full accountability of the law. The school district, if they're doing something, they should be held accountable. I like where the Teachers' Bill of Rights outlines the authority of educators. I think that Mr. Smith has really good ideas for wanting to make sure that we respect where teachers are coming from as far as setting their rules, the discipline. But I would say to Mr. Smith, the code of conduct already protects that, as well as the teachers union's contracts already has that. And so I know that what was cited in here, and I'm happy to talk with you, Michael, about this further because I want to understand it. But what's cited as Florida, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama enacting these type of bills, let's look at those bills directly. Let's see where those are. Because again, I don't believe we should be giving special classifications to groups of individuals. That's not what our Constitution's based on. That's not what the liberty or sovereign rights is that you and I have as Delawareans, as Americans. Once we start creating specialized groups that get certain rights and certain privileges, we no longer have a Constitution. We violated it. And so that's the reason why I came at this, Mr. Smith. It's no hard feelings, but that's, the reason why I brought this up and made the video about it. Katie, what's your thoughts about the Bill of Rights type of talk that's in here?
I'm personally not a fan of it being phrased in that way, Bill of Rights. I think that I personally don't believe in qualified immunity. I feel like if you do something wrong, you should be able to held against that. So I don't like that either. There's a lot of things specifically that I have questions about when we're referring to the homeless Bill of Rights. Honestly, there's a lot of things in that I don't quite understand. Permits an individual experiencing homelessness to conduct life-sustaining activities in public. What is that? Because I feel like that matters greatly. What are we extending to a certain group of people that isn't being extended to everyone? What would that entail?
I think it's an excellent question. I brought that up in my video I made, that, your private property doesn't stop being your private property simply because it's not at a home. Right. It's in public instead. Right. When does homelessness stop and when does it start? I've had, unfortunately, a large number of students that I've taught throughout the years that have been homeless or housing insecure at different parts of their life where they're in and out of homelessness. What justifies being in or out of homelessness? Like, there's so much gray area here that I love the fact that we're looking for protection for a marginalized community. Love it. Mm-hmm. The compassion, the empathy that I have for this, especially knowing families and students that have been in this situation. I love the fact that our lawmakers are actually starting to go, hey, what could we do? But
I feel like something definitely needs to be done, but I don't believe that what is proposed is truly going to do anything. And I would actually argue that some of the things and stipulations that would be allowed in that would actually make for dangerous situations for multiple parties. As an example, if we're saying that somebody that's living out of their car can park anywhere on public property, well, the curb in front of your house is public property. That street is public. It's not private. Now imagine being a homeowner with young children and you have this car parked out. You don't know who the person is. They can come and go. You don't know their background. You don't know if they're a safe individual. They're out there for weeks at a time. Tension is building up because you are nervous for what your children are around. That's just the honest to God truth. I think that puts for a really, really dangerous situation for frustrated homeowners and people that are just looking for a place, to exist, to be. But let's be honest, not all of them are out there looking for a job and trying to live life the right way. Some of them are truly choosing to live in their cars and homelessness to choose the addiction lifestyle. Now they have those homeowners wondering, okay, is this person shooting up in their car out front of my home? Is this now not a safe area? Are there needles in the street out front of where my kids play basketball? I feel like this is a big problem, honestly.
That actually, Katie, goes to the conversation of addiction that we had a month ago. Talked about, these people's personal stories, what's going on. But that's kind of where I'm at, is for people like Brian that's actually going to Dover to talk about this. I think that they really need to sit and think about what policies that have been enacted before they took office have actually pushed people into homelessness. Yes. What policies in the city of Wilmington have put people in poverty, a cycle of poverty, and not allowed them to step up because we've restricted liberty and opportunity and instead replaced it with taxation programs in order to feel like, oh, look, we've provided for everybody. We've fed the poor, when in reality, we haven't actually taught them the fish so that they can feed their family. We've just given them the fish. And I think that there needs to be a gut check by legislators to really look at what have we done historically for the last 50 plus years that have hurt Delawareans on the poverty scale, that have kept a conjecture of poverty to be prevalent in family systems for generations.
Yes.
That is much more helpful than legislating a Bill of Rights, so to speak, for the homeless community.
Absolutely. I don't find any of this to be helpful at all. I really don't. I want to recognize, and I think it's great that they're seeing that, hey, there is a problem here, but I don't think just doing something to feel good about doing something is quite enough. especially if the trickle down from that is just negative impacts. I was reading through, I think it was Shannon's comment section, and somebody had brought up, like, we already have a huge homeless population in Delaware for the things that we've mentioned already throughout this podcast and tonight, whether it be eviction, whether it be the foreclosures. We have a very large population of them. Additionally, over the summer, we welcomed and took in more from Philadelphia. So now our problem has doubled, and nothing meaningful is being done about it. Even designating a park to being a tent city. Tent city is not good. That's not a good solution. That's in my opinion, that's a cruel solution. We're welcoming these people here and we have nothing to do or give to them. We have no help to extend to them. So why are you putting them here in this situation where it's even harder to get out? Somebody brought up in the comment section about all of the unused warehouses, I guess, that the city of Wilmington owns or has access to, and making something like that into an actual shelter situation where people can then drop off donations and stuff. And my question kind of is to that, what would be the difference between that and the Hope Center? I mean, I said about the biology thing not being nuanced. This one is very nuanced, and I feel like it's very important when dealing with such a large issue that Delaware is feeling, that we get it right and we not just do something to put a Band-Aid and say something was done.
Yeah, I was also looking, just, moving away from some of the homeless conversations. So, because I want to tell everybody this too. Sophie Phillips, when we spoke, that is somebody who's willing to listen to constituents.
That's amazing.
And I had a great, back and forth with her. And so for the people that she represents, I love talking to people that are open to great conversations, just to figure things out and not come at it from the standpoint of, oh, I got you, or I disagree.
Yeah.
And, it's a collaboration. We're all in this together. The voters that are bringing people there, if it's not collaborative and your person's going, I know better than you, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But if they're going, oh yeah, you help vote for me, or you're part of my community, let's talk about it. That's awesome. And this is one of those things that affects the entire state. Somebody put in, there's been a couple other things that wasn't on our radar for tonight before we get to the final stuff. I'm not sure if you guys saw, I know, Katie, you posted about the one that I just saw here, which was HB 191. That is the one that I disagreed with you on, about AI and making sure that the act clarifies that a non-human entity, I'm going to put this up on screen so they can see it. Just have it out with you a little bit. We'll talk about why I disagree with you. To be
honest, going into it, I don't quite have a strong opinion one way or another. There are certain bills.
Come on, we need good television, Katie.
No, I'm just saying that's one.
Right.
Like, you're not going to convince, no one will ever convince me otherwise about boys and girls sports. Never, ever, ever. This is one that I'm like, okay, I do understand. Like, I get what you're saying. And now with this one, it basically protected titles from being able to be accredited by AI, correct?
So you want me to pick the winner?
Yeah.
You got to hear my argument, hear Katie's argument, and go from there.
Greg, you go first. I know what I'm dealing with.
So, Brian, my argument's this. I followed ChatGPT back in October when they stopped allowing it to give medical advice the way that it was giving medical advice, because doctors started lobbying against them, stating that people are taking them as if they're licensed doctors. They're not licensed to practice, so therefore they don't have a right to give this type of advice through ChatGPT. ChatGPT recently responded by creating ChatGPT Health, which is a more washed down version that's very careful in not diagnosing. But here's the amazing thing. Before October, people were going with differential diagnoses that were sick for decades, and AI was finally solving their problems by putting a bill that states that you cannot have a professional title, which now the Democrats care about titles. You can't have a title. All right. This actually hurts us in the long run, because it hurts the innovation, the liberty and free market for me to be able to go to a large source of information and trying to get a differential for my family member, trying to get a differential for myself. I should have that opportunity, and no one should say, well, no, it's not licensed, so therefore it's not allowed to give you this type of information, which is where this leads. This is a slippery slope where it sounds like, oh, well, we're going to protect those people that went to school for it. The problem is it's the lobbyists that are actually saying you're not allowed to have access to information you didn't pay for. That is BS. And so this bill I am vehemently against, and I hope that we don't assign something that is as stupid as they don't get professional titles for AI. Of course, AI doesn't have a professional title. It's not a human being. All right, we don't need to go this. Why are we trying to give everything a personality of what it means to be human that's non-human?
So you're saying it's like a stepping stone, basically.
Oh, it's
like
beyond.
We start
Yes.
here, and it's something so stupid. See, now look, when you say it like that, I totally understand and I agree. I was reading the bill verbatim for the words. No, we shouldn't call it Dr. GPT. It shouldn't probably be able to prescribe medication for you. But like you said, with getting like the alternative stuff, my personal story is my husband lowered his blood pressure. The cardiologist, both cardiologists want to put him on statins. We're very holistic. He didn't want to go that route. So following ChatGPT's advice and recommendations and, flow charting it from thing to thing, he's completely lowered all of his cholesterol on his own. And I no way think that should be outlawed.
So the conversation then here would have to be, what is a human's right? Okay, if I want to use AI to prescribe me a prescription, AI gets to a point where I trust it to do so. Who are legislators to say that I'm not allowed to do that, to take that liberty away from me?
Who has the liability if they just got it all wrong, or they prescribe you something?
Oh my God, me, the consumer, the person that made the decision. Absolutely. Okay. You don't get to sue ChatGPT. Like that's the problem with the litigation of society, where you always have to put blame. At some point, you got to take responsibility for yourself, for your health. And if you want to take a differential diagnosis, you should be able to, and you shouldn't need to know that it's not licensed. What this is leading to is a vacuum of information.
So hypothetically speaking, if ChatGPT diagnosed you with a heart condition and it prescribes you a medication, but you guys never went over any of your current medications to know if anything had a bad interaction or anything like that. So it could prescribe you the medication, you went and you got it filled, and something happens to you. The entire liability would then just be on you.
Absolutely. The liability would be on me for using it like an idiot. Especially because if you're able to use ChatGPT for that, you should be able to say, hey, here's my medications. Did they have interactions? Like at some point, you got to stop the Darwin Awards and stop saving people from themselves with government. Government shouldn't be saving you from yourself. You should take some personal responsibility for your role in this life. And so, Brian, I need you to weigh in. You need to make a decision here.
So no decision's made because I'm on your side. I told you that.
I know, but I want to hear Brian say it now.
My understanding of this bill was that you're not you can research whatever you want. It can tell you whatever you want. But at the end of the day, if a medical decision is going to be made for a prescription or a diagnosis, that an AI would not be able to do that it would have to be a professional. That's the way that I read it, that AI could not play a role within that profession, like how you have AI looking now at x-rays and stuff like that to see abnormalities. That's how I read it, is that it could help within medicine and medical technology, but the individual who actually made the determination or wrote the script or made whatever decision was for the final actual human being could not be an AI signing off on it. Right. That's how I read the bill.
But this is why I laugh at lawmakers, because that shouldn't even need to be explained. That ChatGPT didn't go to Harvard. It didn't go to Penn to study medicine. It gets no license. That's the part. And then the reason I'm bringing this up is so Minor Brown's the primary sponsor. What caused Minor Brown to bring this legislation, especially what caused Minor Brown to bring this legislation around the same time frame that ChatGPT has its brought back? That tells me somebody's in our legislators' ears saying, hey, we're moving towards this. I
think that's the question that needs to be asked so we understand what the origin of the bill is.
Correct. Oh, I love this. This has been so much fun tonight. I'm glad to be back in the analytical seat. This is great. Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, Greg.
So the one thing that really popped out at me, and this will probably be a good segue to the last part of the show, is that there are 6 bills to deal with immigration here in Delaware. Historically, immigration has been left up to the federal government. I don't think we've ever had bills in General Assembly since the beginning. It's the 153rd General Assembly. Each General Assembly has 2 years. It's 153rd General Assembly in Delaware. We have, I mean, maybe at some time, but not to this extent. Especially 6 bills for dealing with immigration. How does Delaware operate or cooperate with federal law enforcement? Now, the thing that really when I look at these are all 6 of them are all about ways that we do not cooperate, what we will not do, information we will not give, things we will not allow them to do. But what is challenging for me, and I almost brought it up today in a different conversation because it's kind of pertaining to it, but it wasn't really the right situation to do it, was when are we going to tell the public, or are we going to tell the public as a General Assembly and as the governor and as the Attorney General, when are we going to work with the federal law enforcement? Because as these bills come in and we can go through them, I understand that they may want to not have the federal agencies come in and have big data dumps to be able to look through. At the same time, they're ignoring that there are real threats and there are real criminals that are not here legally. And how are we going to work with the federal partners in order to ensure that that does not become a threat to the people on the ground? I actually talked with a pastor today at Legislative Hall. He's from Argentina. He's told me it took his father 15 years to even get the paperwork for his green card. He was able to come over after those 15 years, after his father got his green card and came over here legally. I don't have to tell his whole story, but he was a professional trumpet player when he came over, and now God has called him to do ministerial work. And so he's in my office, and we're talking about these immigration bills, and he said, I think the thing that is really the problem is when you look at it through the lens of Christianity is God is merciful, and he's also just. And he's the only being that can be all merciful and all just. And when we talk about immigration, there's people who go all the way on the side of merciful. They want it to be they want this country to be open for everybody, no matter what, no rules whatsoever. And it doesn't matter who you are, what you've done. We're going to be accepting of everyone. And then there's also people on the other side that maybe are too far on what we would call just or punishment, that say it doesn't matter, everyone out now, there's no compassion, we don't care about anything. And he said we've got to find somehow where we're merciful, but also understand justice has to be a part of it as well. And I thought it was a very interesting way to put the subject and come back to the point that when are we going to, there seems to be a lot of, mercy in these bills, but where are we going to actually hold the line and say there is a real threat? And when are we going to work with federal agents in order to deal with that?
They're not. And I'm going to tell you, it's, in my opinion, it's just like abortion is. It's just like abortion is now. You have people that can't even consign to the fact, people that are pro-choice, but can't even consign to the fact that abortion up to 36 weeks pregnant is cruel. It's one of those topics, I feel like at this point, it's never going to come back to a middle of balance. It's one way or the other at this point. And I feel like the answer to it, to being merciful, but just at the same time, I mean, I'm probably oversimplifying it a lot, but just make immigration easier. and hold the line when it comes to illegal immigration. You don't have to come here and rob a bank to be a criminal. If you are in this country illegally, you are a criminal. And name me another country that doesn't hold true for.
Yeah, I think people should really watch our show from a month ago where we had Taylor Spies, Taylor, I'm trying to remember his last name. Anyway, Taylor from the border, who was talking about what he actually saw and his documentation of the over 5 million people who poured into our country over the last 5 years. And that is a conservative number. When we talk about, what is ICE doing? What is immigration working on? There have been very real violations of legitimate American rights. And those should be called out, and those should be held accountable to our government for not having due process properly, for bringing people that are here legally. And that should be taken the spotlight. But we cannot live in a vacuum. And this is the polarization of Democrats and Republicans and what we saw in Minnesota recently, where I'm just like, we're not dealing with facts on either side, and it's really bothersome. The reality is there are people that have very bad intentions in our country, and you should trust that there are officers that are looking to get the people selling drugs off the streets, looking to get the rapist off the streets, looking to get the people that were wanted in their own country but are now loose on the streets in a town near you. When did we ever get to the part where we just turned a blind eye and go, nope, it's human rights. We can't have this. No, it's about safety. And so seeing so many bills that are about restricting school resource officers, House Bill 93, says that a school resource officer and school constables restricts them from cooperating with federal law enforcement agencies in immigration matters outside of the Delaware Attorney General. I have a problem with that because what that does, chain of command, there's things the police know that I don't know, you don't know, Brian and Katie doesn't know. I think that we need to remember that school resource officers are law enforcement. They're not teachers. We're restricting them from communicating at this point in time with federal law enforcement, even about immigration or other things. It starts drifting from non-cooperation into active interference with what ICE is doing and all these other government agencies.
100%. Yes. Yep.
So if politicians are going to start telling cops the questions that they're allowed to ask, then our Constitution is very weak. We are very much in a bad spot. So seeing these type of bills, look, there's one that I agree with. The one that I agree with as a teacher, immigration should not be coming into any school grabbing a child. Can we agree as Americans and as citizens that a child is in a place of learning that should not be where immigration reform happens? Schools exist in order to educate our children, not to police them. Children should not be used as enforcement tools by the governments. And when you turn teachers and administrators into the people that are going to broker the data for the families for immigration enforcement, you're destroying trust inside the classroom and you're exceeding what that school's purpose is in the community. But again, the Attorney General permission structure matters, and that's why I have a problem with these bills. I believe that you can say that schools are neutral zones for learning, but neutrality is not immunity from holding people accountable that are going to school there. It's the reason why, Katie, on your wall a few days ago, I got angry about somebody calling a second grader illegal. A second grader didn't choose to come into this country illegally. Their parents might have done so, but can we stop putting the sins of parents as the sins of children? Because as a country, we should be better than that. That's not a liberal thing. That's an American thing. And that's something where you should have compassion, because once you violate that, to Katie's point about abortion, you violated right to life. You violated representing that all life is sacred and special. And so I don't support people calling that. It has nothing to do with me being liberal or of a woke mind virus. It's about making sure that children have a safe place to be educated, to learn, as well as society that actually sees them as children with worth. We can talk all about their parents.
A second grader didn't choose it, and they're the child of an illegal immigrant, a legal person that made a very terrible decision and put their family at risk. But on school grounds, there's other ways to get them. I don't think they should be going in schools either.
Yep.
One of the biggest issues that I have with these bills is that the discretion is left up to the attorney general. And a lot of these bills, it is left up to the attorney general, that position itself. And you're talking about a political position. You're talking about a political position in an election year. And you're talking about a political position in an election year with a individual who, by a lot of measurements, is not even holding criminals who are legally here accountable, violent criminals accountable for the crimes that they're committing in our own communities. And you want to put that discretion in her lap about when and when not to cooperate with federal agents, when it is their job and their job alone to make decisions on immigration. It is not up to Delaware by federal immigration law. It's not up to the state to say, we need to get this person out of here because they're not. It's a federal operation.
You know what really upsets? I'm sorry, just real quick, and I promise I won't go on a whole tangent here, but really upsets me about this is bills like this and language like this, all it does is incite people, and it's using citizens. Bills like this get citizens riled up, and it's their bodies out there. No matter what I think about them being out there, even if I completely agree or disagree with somebody, and I see the entire world as completely opposite, I don't want them being used as a pawn. And that's what happens. They go out, they feel righteous, they feel like they're doing something good, and they're the ones that are put in direct harm's way. And when something happens, who picks it up? It's, oh my gosh, this person shouldn't have died, and then it's on to the next thing. It's citizens being used.
I want to ask Sean Lynn, Attorney Sean Lynn, who's a representative here that's proposing these bills, the majority of these bills, the 6 bills that Brian's talking about. Mm-hmm. We got, I think it was House Bill 58, HB 60. We had HB 93. We had substitute House 1 for HB 94. You guys can look all this up. I want to ask you, Mr. Lynn, when your bill affects your community, and somebody who is being sought by immigration does something in your community to harm one of your constituents, and one of your bills was responsible for making sure that that person wasn't caught in a timely fashion, will you be able to sleep at night? Will you feel that you've contributed meaningfully to your constituents and the people that voted for you? There are ways we can have compassion and empathy. I actually found that I would agree with one of your bills, the limiting release of driving privilege card data. My libertarian side, I can agree with you, Lynn. But the rest of this, I'm asking to step back from the rhetoric that's consuming this country and start looking at the common sense of we need to start protecting our communities. So if you would like to respond, you see this segment, I would welcome your response for how you feel that you might be impacting the community and the people that would be voting for this.
Now, just looking forward, I do believe that there is going to be a critical point where this has to be voted on, because I think the pressure will get more and more. Leadership in the majority party has been able to hold this off of the floor so far. Even the ones that have gone through committee have not made it to getting on the floor and over to the Senate. But with this pressure mounting, with the federal government going in even harder and saying, this is what people voted for, this is what people want, I think there's going to become a point where either it gets on the floor or there's going to be a big division within the majority party in the General Assembly. So it's going to be a big discussion. It really will be.
I wouldn't be shocked if every one of those passed.
Yeah. I agree with you.
I expect it. It's expected, and nothing
I
new under
learned?
the sun.
The most dangerous phrase from lawmakers is, do you know what it is?
What?
When Nancy Pelosi said, you don't need to read the bill, just pass it, we'll fix it later, right? She said, I'm paraphrasing here, but you remember when she said that? I think the most dangerous thing in the English language for a politician to utter is, we'll fix it later, which a lot of these bills are going to need to be fixed later. If you go back to what I said at the very beginning of the show about where a fire belongs in a fireplace, by the time we smell the smoke, the house is already burning. And so,
dang, Greg,
while I'm here tonight, it's to make sure we don't burn down our own house. And so, if you take anything away from my take on these bills tonight, I'm trying to make sure that we live in a safe home with a safe fireplace and a safe government. And I respect all the elected leaders for doing this job. It's thankless. But I also invite you to conversations on things that you would disagree with what was brought up here tonight. My messages are open. I'm open to the conversations because I want to see good common sense measures for Delawareans, and I want to see a better balanced budget. I want to see the economy doing well. And so I appreciate you guys bringing me on tonight to have this conversation.
Can I add something to that too? I would like to see these conversations, but I would like to challenge people. And this is both, again, people that I agree with and the people that I oppose, to have these conversations in an adult manner, without name calling, without jumping down each other's throat, without assuming the worst. Have the conversations, because if one thing the internet can show us is a lot of times people form their opinions without thinking them through. And sometimes it just takes a little nugget of information or fact or knowledge to change that. But the moment you jump to the worst and you argue with people and you name call, you are turned off. There is no getting through. So if you really want change and you don't want to just bitch, sorry about my language, have the conversations in a respectful way. Sorry.
It is, just to put a final piece on this, it is definitely going to be an interesting year, not only about kind of the undertone of the nation of, there really seems to be people living in different realities, and that can go for people that are on the right and the left, when the lens that they look through in order to see things. But it is an election year, which always seems to have more extreme on both sides legislation as well. We are hoping that Reclaim Ground will be able to bring you information and bills and media attention to things that are going on ahead of schedule, so that you can have these conversations with your families, with people at your church, with people in your community, and talk about them before they get to a committee process. Because once it gets to a committee, yes, there will be some discussion. You may be able to go up there and give a 2-minute speech about yes or no, but they probably already have the votes for which way they want to go. And once it reaches the House floor, it's done. They've already decided which way it's going to go. So these conversations need to be held before these ideas and legislation even go to committee, so that we can talk about them. We can have a good discussion on them, and you can reach out to the people, the decision makers, and say, yes, I like this. This sounds like a great way, or no, this is not the way that we need to move, whatever that feeling is. However it's going to impact you, you need to know about it before it even hits committee level, so you can have these conversations with decision makers, because that's when those minds can be changed.
Agree. And I think we're doing that. And if you're somebody that watches us, whether it's tonight, whether you've been here for all of our episodes, we have multiple conversations a week talking about this. And if you like what we're doing, if you find value in what we're doing, if you feel it within you and you're called to support us, that little thing scrolling across the bottom, that goes right to us. Buy us a cup of coffee. let us get together to talk about some of these things and discuss our shows and figure out what is the best way that we can serve you guys. Because at the end of the day, especially when it comes to this podcast, that is what we are here for. We are here to try to help in this community. And next week, I am really hoping that we are able to help with these dang Delmarva bills, which we will be covering. We will be having a lot of conversations this week about that. If you are somebody that feels strongly about your Delmarva bill and you want your voice to be heard, if you are somebody that maybe works for Delmarva or is anywhere in that industry and you want to contribute to the conversation, please reach out to us. But we'll definitely be covering the Delmarva bills next week, so make sure you are here for that.
Thank you all.
Bye!
Reclaim ground media, we're taking back the sound, lifting up the truth until the walls come down. Voices for the kingdom, hope in every town. This is where the lost get found. On Reclaim Ground.